Welcome in casters, half-casters, quarter-casters, marshals, and multi-classers to another episode of the Cloaks and Capes podcast. I'm Robbie, used to only play rogues, but now also gunslingers Landis, and along with me, as always, my co-host, Kali. There's more than Warlock's scales, and you'll have a chance to defend yourself against that in a minute, don't worry. And of course, our guest this time from Roll for Impact, DM Kenny Mai. Welcome to the show, Kenny.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, guys.
So just so that we get a little bit of info on you too in that regards, what is your go-to class? Do you have like a specific usual that you end up with, or are you multi-classical, we'll call it?
My go-to has always been and always will be a paladin.
How'd you feel about the smite changes in 2024?
Perfectly fine. It's not that it's strictly worse. It's just sometimes worse, which is fine.
No, but straight up. So I hated it at first. Like when I was seeing like the changes, I was like, oh my God, it's such a nerf. But I'm going to tell you, being able to lay on hands and attack in the same turn
it's wild.
Real good.
No, it's absolutely wild. It's
good.
It actually fulfills the healer warrior fantasy. And I'm like, I will never not do both unless I'm like, for RP reasons, need to do something else with my bonus action.
Robbie jokes that I'm warlocks only, but it's warlocks and paladins, to be fair. Like those are the two.
Okay, while we're being fair, what did you always multi-class into as a paladin?
Warlock.
Yeah.
Well, again, because it was insanely good. In 2014, like there was no excuse to not take a level of Hexblade with your paladin. Like there just wasn't.
For sure. But still, I was right.
You were right.
Welcome in everyone. We have Kenny here today, and I actually feel maybe not a little bit bad, but considering how prevalent it's been recently in tabletop RPG discussions and like the scene and stuff like that, I'm surprised it's taken us 12 episodes to get to it. But today we're going to talk about Session Zero's safety tools and why you should have these at your tables. Yes, even if you know your friends and you know what they're about and you all play safely, I'm going to tell you, and we're going to give you a few examples, you should still be doing Session Zeros because we all kind of fall for it. So I'm actually going to hand it over to you, Kenny, as our guest. If you'd like to sort of give, let's say someone's never heard of this before. They're like, what do you mean a Session Zero? I should be doing something before the first session. How would you describe a Session Zero to somebody?
A Session Zero is theoretically a conversation between all parties that are going to be playing this game, including the DM, about the expectations, the guidelines, the themes, and the goals for everyone involved. It is a critical part of a D&D campaign or a tabletop RPG campaign. For the purposes of this podcast, I'm just going to say D&D, but it applies to every TTRPG. But it is an expectation setting tool that is vital for everyone. It is paramount that everyone walks in knowing that they're all playing the same game, because as we know in this hobby, there is honestly no wrong way to play D&D unless you're not having fun. And that not having fun part is very hinged on, are you all playing the same game? Are your expectations being met? And if not, we got to talk about it.
That was so succinct. That was perfect. I don't think I could have did that better myself, even if I'd prepared something.
No, but I think it is important, not only from the player perspective, but also from the DM's perspective, because DM's Session Zero is your chance to put your expectations onto the players of, hey, here is the kind of the terms of service of playing at my table. In my Session Zero, I always lay out, these are the expectations of your characters, and can include things like, I'm not going to explain as the DM why you, the player, are involved in the story. It is your job to understand your character's motivation to be involved with the party. Session Zero is the time to lay out that expectation.
Yeah, the expectation also very paramount is what kind of role-playing game are we going to play? Because as we know, there are many kinds of role-playing. Going back to the classic role-playing experience, the ARPG, AD&D type thing, very, very different from the pathway that's been paved by Critical Role, Dimension 20, and all these other actual plays that have hit the mainstream media. and the cultural consciousness of people today. Very, very different. And having those expectations really up front will set you up for success or failure if you fail to really either express what exactly we're going for, or if you express it and then you change it without telling your DM, without telling your players. Everyone is held accountable there.
Yeah, it could be the difference between having a game where role play means that you are doing, fake smooches with your friends' characters, or war criming a village somewhere. Those are two completely, and it might also be a campaign where both of them happen. I don't know, but that's the reason session zeros are important.
And both are correct. Both are correct as long as the rest of the table is down for it. If everyone comes out smiling, then you are playing it the right way. But
yeah, I also think that it's important to kind of let people know who maybe have never had a session zero before. Chances are you are probably doing some of this already in the conversations you're having through Discord or in person, leading up to when you have your campaign, sort of as you're creating your characters and stuff like that. But just relying on that allows for certain things to potentially fall through the cracks. One of the sort of cautionary tales that Kali and I had to play through in a game where a friend of ours was DMing was, we all got together to play this game. There were 4 of us, I think, and then a few sessions in, a 5th player got brought in as well. And it wasn't until I think even like a year and a half later, after taking a break and then coming back, that player wanted to sort of dive a bit deeper and further into his character backstory, which maybe even up to that point he hadn't even thought a whole lot about, let alone cleared with the DM, because there was even points during this where the DM admitted I had no idea that's where he was going with it. But essentially he wanted to play an irredeemable character that had done said war crimes, was maybe not proud of the fact, but was like, look,
it was unrepentant.
The ends justify the means. I wouldn't change it. But, and basically all of our characters and us who were mortified were like, okay, well, you're not part of the group anymore then, because you're a literal war criminal.
Right.
And the player had issues with that. You guys told your stories. I want to tell mine, even though nobody at the table was comfortable with that story being told.
Right. And that's something that I think really needs to be emphasized, that we call it session zero for a reason. It is still a session, which means that in other sessions, future sessions, we still have to keep all these things in mind and check in with ourselves. Like, hey, I don't like where this arc is going. Right. Or like, hey, your character did this and we never talked about that. And that's a sensitive subject. So it's a consistent check-in of, hey, are we still cool with this? And it begins again at session zero. It's why we name it a session.
Yeah. So, and actually going off, that is a great segue. Thank you. Appreciate it. Within this session zero, besides talking about things like expectations, there are a lot of different components that you may have to talk about. So, we're going to talk about a few different things here, some of which are referred to as safety tools. Others, really, they kind of all fall under safety tools. But while you may not use all of them, such as lines and veils, an X and O card, and we'll get to those, there are still concepts that are still a type of safety tool and should be talked about. Things like expectations.
Lucky for you, Robbie. I use all of them. So
every safety tool that is out there, we use a lot of them as well. But I'd like to start with sort of some of the stuff that I think are like entirely paramount. We talked a little bit about expectations, for example. Things like debriefings, check-ins, communication, consent. Essentially, you're putting into work certain practices that if something were to go wrong for any reason, you have things there to figure out how to deal with it. I've had so many people come into chat before and be like, hey, can I get some advice? I have this issue at my table.
Yep.
And usually when you get advice from, online or something, they tell you, oh, well, make sure you talk to your DM, right? Just talk to your DM about it. But that doesn't always solve the issue, because there are some people that either don't know how to do that, or there are some DMs who don't know how to respond to that idea that the fun that I've created for the table isn't actually fun for them.
Right. Before we move forward, and a topic that I love talking about, like consent, lines and veils, boundaries, love talking about that. I think something that we need to mention that I might get burned at the stake for is that, listen, you may have heard it somewhere before if you've been on the internet that no D&D is better than bad D&D. And this goes hand in hand with these expectations. If you are walking into, if you've already been like 5-6 sessions in and you start feeling, I don't feel this anymore, you don't have to stick around. Right.
Who's gonna try and put you at the stake for that? What? No, we say that all the time.
There's a fact. No D&D is better than bad D&D.
The correlation there is like, listen, you can leave tables. You can say, hey, like, I like you guys, but this is not what I'm looking for. And it doesn't have to be anything serious like, oh, you crossed a line that I said I did not want to touch. It doesn't even have to be serious. It can just be like, hey, the flavor of which you DM, like the style in which you narrate stuff and like that this is going, I'm not into it. Right?
I had a friend one time do that. Like I was really, really close to them. They played for 5 or 6 sessions and then said that they'd like to step away because they're like,
sure.
I don't feel like my player style meshes well with your DM style. And did I take it a little bit personally? Like it's hard not to, but I understood.
And sometimes it isn't even about like your storytelling methodology or any of that. Sometimes it literally just comes down to, hey, this game's got more combat in it than I'm particularly into. Sure. I'm more excited about the roleplay. This game doesn't get it crunchy enough for what I'm into. Like, it can be as simple as that.
It can, but the thing that I wanted to tie into our safety tools is also the level of commitment is also an aspect that we don't talk about enough as DMs of like, that also needs to match, right? However much effort the rest of the players are putting in to making sure everyone's safe, to making sure the storytelling is sound, to make sure that everyone's on board and consensual with everything, and how much interaction there is off screen, if you will, between the players of like, hey man, like, can your character, my character do it? Like that level of commitment also needs to match pretty well. And if it doesn't, then you're going to have maybe not even like, oh, you crossed a line that I didn't want you to, or, oh, your storytelling style doesn't mesh with mine. It's just a matter of like, I don't feel like you care.
There's a great post on Blue Sky that I saw from Gnome and in particular long thread. So there's a bunch of stuff on there, but look the creator up. They're amazing. But in one of the posts they had mentioned there are some people who look at D&D as just a game, right?
Yeah.
Which I get. Like when it comes down to it is just
perfectly
a game.
Fine.
But there are stories you hear of, the scheduling beast, right? People not being able to all show up at the same time. And, there have been people that I've had to deal with in the past who, last minute something will come up or they won't show up and you'll find out later, oh yeah, something came up. And it's like, okay, the reason that they probably didn't care is because again, to them, it's just a game. They'll play without me. But depending on who's at your table, depending on what's happening, sometimes you are expecting everyone to be there and put in this level of effort. And look, if you can't make it, things happen for sure.
Of course, absolutely. But the thing is, if it becomes like a habit, if I start seeing like, oh, you don't even interact with the DM myself or any of the other players, this is what I'm going to get burned at stake for. I will remove you from my game. I don't care.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you're a nice person, but if you're not into this, please do not waste my time. Please do not waste my beautiful players' time. Like, we are all adults. We all have things we could be doing, man. We all do, dude. But this is something that we all agree to and you agree to. And if you're not holding up your end of the bargain, I will hold you accountable, right?
I agree with that. Yeah.
I think absolutely one of the tough things about it is, and Robbie will tell you, I take it pretty seriously. Like, I really get into my D&D. And I struggle when we miss a lot of games. When we miss sessions a lot, I ended up leaving a game that I played at for, like you say, about 6, I think, sessions that I played in. But we missed so many sessions that I just got to the point of like, clearly this isn't a priority for you, and I'm setting aside time on a night every week to do this. I'm stepping away.
Hey, and look, and as a DM, when it happens, especially when people are going through particularly tough times, trust me, I get it and understand it
absolutely
a lot too. So when it comes down to, you'll probably hear about a lot of people talking about like session 0 documents. I definitely have one. I need one because there is a lot to potentially go over. You can actually find the one that I use. I don't know if Kali uses this one as well, but if you go over to our Patreon, you can find it for free members as well. You can go and like make a copy of it on Google Docs and basically have your own to then edit as you need to or as you see fit. But some of the stuff that it's important to cover, I'd mentioned stuff like consent, and there might be some people who laugh at that idea. Like, what do you need to consent to in a game?
Yeah, I have a fantastic story for this one.
Please, go ahead.
I have a fantastic story for this. I have had multiple players in my games, including my actual play, who have put down, hey, I have a severe phobia of X. And that thing is like not super common, right? But it's also like one of those things where if you're not thinking about it, you will mention it.
Yeah.
And it's like understood, right? And it wasn't until later that I learned that, oh, this phobia is life-threatening for them. Like it's a severe problem. And so anyone who laughs at that, you shouldn't be a DM. Yeah, there we go. I'll say a strong feeling there. Like if you do not care about people, why are you playing a game that requires you to interact cooperatively with people?
Yeah.
Right?
I think, consent is a really big one. And I've talked about this on past episodes, but there's a lot of research that shows that our brains do a very, very bad job of distinguishing experiences that we have in role play from things that happen in real life, which is why there's things like character bleed, which is why you can come away from the table really kind of feeling it hours afterwards. And it's why things like consenting to play with everyone is a big deal. If you play at my table, I'm likely to do some stuff that is going to make your character sad at some point. I believe strongly that the hero's journey does require you to go through hell first.
And you as a player, though, also get to help decide what those potential things are. So, for example, if your DM tells you that, like, hey, people in your backstory that are still alive, there's a chance they can be used against you.
Right.
You are well within your right to say, no, they're not, or these characters, please, are off the table for that. And if a DM tells you, no, they're all on the table, that's a table
Red flag.
You should
away
leave.
from.
Red flag.
Absolutely leave. That's a psychopath.
Yep.
No, for sure.
Character
And
death is another one that you should have like a topic about as well when it comes to consenting to things.
PvP is another one as well. I know that one is a sticky
PvP
subject.
Looks like,
what it looks like, what it entails, what it doesn't entail, right? Like I have, as a DM, no issue at all ever with opposing checks. No problem with that. Active PvP, I am hard no against. That is not the stories that I tell. Some people do, and that's okay, right? But I tell everyone straight up front, like if you try to get aggro, I will take it above table and ask you like, hey, do you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, if this is where we're going, then we're stopping. Right.
Right.
And we're going to call it a night and you and I are going to have a real fun chat. But, laying out those guidelines, like, again, some people, they're okay with this type of stuff. They play TTRPG systems that encourage it, right? Or they want to tell stories that actively have that be a danger to the players of maybe your player might end up hating another one. That's fine. If everyone is on board, as you said, consent, right? And that works with everything. So, sensitive subjects being the big one, right? Lots of drawing lines and veils, which is one of the tools we talked about. It's my personal favorite.
Mine too.
For the uninitiated, lines are exactly what they sound like. They're hard lines where, hey, this doesn't come up in the campaign ever, period.
Yep.
Right?
Doesn't mean it doesn't exist in the world, but we don't talk about it.
It can exist, right? It can exist in the world, but we don't talk about it.
We're not going to play with it.
We don't play with it. It's not relevant to what we do. Veils are, hey, this subject makes me uncomfortable. It can be in the story, but please do not focus on it or just fade to black.
Right. Something that's maybe been mentioned in passing, but isn't something that's actively taking place.
Right. And I typically go a step further too. And I also include a third category for my own players of like, what are things that you'd be okay if I messaged you privately about and asked you, hey, is this cool?
Asks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, so, I kind of have a third-ish category, or I guess when I'm filling things out like for my DMs, normally the things that I have veiled, I'm fine with other people exploring in their stories on screen. I just don't want to have to interact with it myself.
Right, I don't want it to happen to my character.
Yeah. Sorry, Kali, you've been trying to say something for a second here.
No, it's fine. I was on the mention of PvP. I wanted to say that I know there are tables that are all about like the players colliding with one another and dealing with that. And one of the things I had to get over kind of early is just being willing to say, not at my table. It's just I guess I've got that like millennial thing where I hate seeing mommy and daddy argue. You know what I mean? I don't want to watch like the other people arguing with each other. So I just say in my session 0, as part of laying out my expectations, of course there's going to be disagreement and there might be some strife in the party you're trying to save the world. You're in a high stress environment, But at the end of the day, the expectation is you are all friends, and you are all of you, the main character. The party is the main character working together to save the world. I'm going to give you all plenty of stuff to be angry at. Don't worry. It doesn't need to be each other.
Yeah. Plus, look, if you really want to experience what it's like to potentially almost kill somebody else's character, then I can set up a situation where maybe you go into some mist, you get separated, you see someone from your past that you're
Yeah.
not happy about, you attack them, and then realize, oh no, the mist made me see my party members as somebody I dislike, and I just killed our warlock.
Hey, wait. That sounds familiar.
That sounds, yeah, really
Dungeon
familiar.
Meshi?
I feel like
Oh.
we did that.
So I pulled this on my party, and it was so,
so good.
difficult
We got
on my
nailed.
end because what I did is everybody was assigned a specific character that they looked like to the other party. So in combat, when let's say that Kali, who our warlock was seeing as one of their old captors. If Kali rolled to hit something with a 25, then when it came to that captor attacking, they happened to roll a 25
that's
and deal the same
clever.
amount of damage.
That's clever.
So I was keeping track of like all these ACs and saving throws, and it was so
Crazy.
difficult, and no one caught on
No,
until
we
the
didn't.
reveal. It was actually
So
really,
good.
really clutch for me.
Hats off, man.
I can be
That's
pretty
awesome.
good sometimes. Yeah, I can be pretty good
Yeah.
sometimes. So you actually gave me the perk segue there a second ago. I love when guests do this for us. Thank you. Truly, it's great. The safety tools. So we talked a little bit about what lines and veils are. It's an ever expanding list, and it's also something that while you fill out during session 0, and this is, I want to specifically for anyone out there who has ever thought or said, me and my friends know each other. We know what we like. We know what we don't like. We know what subjects to stay away from. We don't need to do this. Let me tell you why, all right? Because we as human beings don't always know where our lines are or what our veils are. And after a session of ours, we had a player come up to me afterwards and goes, so hey, turns out that abandonment is a line of mine.
No.
Because we
Yeah.
had another player leave the campaign for a while. And so, we did something in game and it hit him hard.
Yeah, Robbie, when we were doing Call of the Netherdeep, and we had that scene where one of the enemies, it was a gas
ghost
or
or
something
something like that,
it,
yeah.
It aged Ember by like 10 years, and I learned that I have a line that I was not aware of, and I had to
Yeah.
message you after, like, can we retcon that out? Because I literally, like, had to stop playing.
Yeah,
It
and that's
freaked
an
me
interesting
out.
one too, because depending on what you're like, if you're an elf, like 10 years is nothing, right?
Right.
But like if you're a 50-year-old human and something just ages you another 10 years, like we might be happen to have some conversations here in a minute about life
Yeah.
expectancy or something. So
Yeah.
yes, they can absolutely come up in the midst of stuff, and you need to be able to go to your DM and let them know, hey, actually, this is how I'm feeling about this thing.
Yeah, 100%. And you should feel comfortable approaching your DM whenever and wherever. And if you can't, or if you don't feel that way, that is a conversation you should have with your DM of, hey, like, I don't feel comfortable approaching you. I don't like it when you do this. This makes me like not want to talk to you. And if they are worth their salt, they'll say, holy shit, I am so sorry.
Yeah.
And let me fix this. Cause we're like, DMs aren't perfect. Like, yeah, we play God, but like, we're not perfect.
I would say, I'm just noticing down in the corner of your camera, it says God Emperor of Fracti.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
It's fine. It's
Don't
fine.
worry about it. That Fracti is the world that Fables is set in. So don't
Yeah,
worry
no,
about that. But
Not
it's,
that you would ever play God.
right. But we're people too, right? And we make mistakes. We do.
We do. Yeah.
Oh my God, I can count so many of my mistakes I've made all across my campaigns, things that I'm embarrassed about for sure. But I don't want to be that way, and bring up to your DM like, hey, I want to feel okay talking to you. They should understand. And if they don't, yes, run as far as you can.
You know what
I'll
a
give you
really
two examples of that
yep,
is
go ahead.
one is I, as a DM, and again, we do make mistakes. Even when you give us lines and veils, sometimes we're gonna like get caught up in a moment where we're just improvising and we might say something. And I did a scene where afterwards one of my players reached out and was like, that was a line for me. And they didn't X card me in the moment, but they're like, hey, just can we work on something with that? And I'm
Right.
like,
Yep.
oh my God, you're absolutely right. I'm so sorry. I felt terrible. And then another example is I had a player they're new to the game. They haven't really been playing this. I think this is their first table that they've ever been at. And they messaged me afterwards. They're like, hey, I wanted to give you some feedback on this session, but I feel kind of awkward doing it because you're like a professional DM and I'm like a first-time player, and I don't know if this is just me complaining. And I'm sitting here like, no, that's so wonderful that you feel confident enough to reach out to me and tell me that you have feedback. Please give me feedback.
Yeah, it's real
Yeah.
tough sometimes as a professional DM when you have new players constantly coming in and out, because needing to adjust your style to be able to fit new players, it's a process. It can
It's
take
an art.
time.
It's an art.
And
There's no
yeah,
science to it.
Yeah, it's an art, not a science.
especially with
exactly.
new
Yeah.
players, because they might also still be trying to figure out what they like about the
Right.
game, if
Right.
they're going to be able to get better at something or not. So you both give me two perfect segues here, and we're going to start with stars, wishes, and a third thing that we've added onto it called wards. And this is great for DMs and players for multiple reasons, and I think gives you a reason and a way to be able to communicate things on a normal basis, right? So stars, wishes, and wards is something you do after a session. It can be right afterwards, like if you have time and everyone wants to kind of sit around and kind of do this together as like a debriefing, or it can be something that's done in private afterwards. I've seen some people ask what they think of it being done anonymously as well. That's fine. I personally think that it undercuts some of the strengths of what this safety tool brings to the table. But stars is something that, there's something in a game that you love, that you thought that was a great moment, that thing was really, really cool, you let your DM know. And this isn't just to give us a big head. It does, but that's not the reason that
It
you
does
do
help,
it.
but
Oh.
If there's a moment, or if there's a thing that you really enjoyed, we need to know so we can give you more of that thing, right? Like if there's
let
a
us
particular
dopamine hit you. Yes.
yeah, if there's
Yeah.
a like a skill or maybe an opportunity we gave you, and you're like, I really enjoyed being able to do that, even though my character failed, we will give you more of that. Wishes are like missed connections. It's where maybe you wish that something in a moment would have went a different way, not necessarily results wise, like, oh, I wish I could have succeeded there, but maybe you didn't get a chance to try something, or you just envision maybe if it had went a different way, we would have had more fun, or it would have been more effective. Also important, so that way we know in those moments that, okay, maybe try a different way when approaching that. And then wards is something that I came up with. And wards is when there's something in a game, this is not lines and veils, but if there's something in a game that you just personally don't really vibe with. And my best example that I've had recently is after this big audience that my party did with the king, where he kind of engaged a little bit with each of them. One of my players told me afterwards, like, hey, I really like when other people are doing like political intrigue and stuff like that. I think it's really interesting, but I suck at like responding and like doing stuff like that. So I don't like being involved in that. So that lets me
Right.
know, cool, don't throw to you for the political intrigue, but I can still keep it in the game.
Or limit, like as
Yeah.
the DM / the director of the scene, you're like, hey, timer, like maybe you don't even have to tell them, just keep a timer up and be like, okay, we spend no more than 10 minutes on this conversation.
Yep.
If it goes in circles, you guys got nothing done. So make every word count, right?
Yeah, another good
I don't
example.
want this person sitting there and feeling like, okay, when can I, like, I don't know, sneak somewhere or steal something? Like, when can I do my thing, right?
Yeah, for anyone who's a fan of Critical Role and knows how much Travis dislikes shopping episodes, Travis would definitely put shopping episodes down as
There we go.
As a ward, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and following up on what you said about stars, though, to an extent, it is also to give us a big head. As the DM, our most rewarding moments are when we make you feel something or when you really enjoy something. So when we succeed in doing that, please do let us know, because it makes us feel good. Like we don't just it helps, like, for even just for a moment, tame the great beast of imposter syndrome that looms over our shoulders at all moments.
Absolutely.
They're kind of like little
Mine likes
mini
to sing
like
to me.
yeah, like mini supervisor. What is it when you have to like do those little things that you'd work? I can't even remember what they're
Like
called.
assessments?
Yeah, assessments. It's like little supervisor, like assessment things. These are the things you did today that's good. These are the things that I kind of hope you change a little bit. And like it just helps us be better DMs, which in turn makes a better game for you, right?
I want to say, if you feel weird about like imposing the structure on your players as a DM, you can be real sneaky about this. You don't have to say like, give me your stars and wishes. Like you don't have to. You can literally just jump on Discord and just be like, yo, that shit was dope. Like, how do we all feel about that? And get the conversation going. And this obviously requires that minimum level of commitment that we talked about establishing in session 0 of like, hey, I'm the type of DM where after a session and throughout the week before the next one, I will talk your ear off in Discord. And like, you don't have to engage me all the time, but just know that this is what I like. And I will say things like, yo, what do you think is going to happen next session? And I'm like, write it out. And like, whatever they say, like, oh, right.
Kenny, will you be
Another
my
way
DM?
I would love to be your DM.
Thank you.
As we're
I'm
having
sorry,
DM issues.
Robbie. You can join us.
Okay.
Robbie, it doesn't have to just be a 2-person thing. You can be. We don't mind.
You say that now, and then you're gonna get both of us in a game, and you're gonna never invite either of us back. Another fun tool, though, too, if you don't mind breaking away from the idea of like you can only have one inspiration at a time. We let people like stack and bank their inspiration. Is afterwards going around the room and everyone being like, you know, what was your favorite moment, or kind of giving everyone like one inspiration that they can give to other people by saying,
cool. Oh, I like that.
What is now one thing that you kind of sometimes run into, or that I know that some people are a little hesitant about, is when like everybody kind of gives it to the same person because they had a really good episode and maybe somebody else didn't. If that is something you're worried about, it could be that, hey, if you share what your favorite moment of tonight was, you get an inspo. That way everyone gets at least one.
Yeah. And once again, going back to expectations about a table, where you're sitting, who your DM is as a DM, I might not do that with inspiration, but what I do instead, because I run a highly narrative table, like very, very immersed, is I keep track in my head. And if someone does something that would like probably most DMs would require a roll, I'd probably say, fuck it. It happens.
You get a freebie somewhere?
Absolutely. Because I enjoy this, because like, I want to see what happens. What are you cooking, dude? Let's go. Right? Like it's the equivalent of saying, Matt Mercer's like, how are we going to do this? Right. It's like that, but for non-combat scenarios where it's just like minor spoilers. We're recording season 2 of Fables right now, and we just had a holy shit moment where at the very end of a combat on a ship, I had this elaborate setup with this monster and tentacles and like these mechanics for the ship to break or not. And then one of my players puts the damn thing to sleep, and then they just sail away. And I'm like, God. Okay. And then because I love my table, because I love my players, and because we set the expectation in session 0 that you are also part of this narrative. If you feel like being the DM, be the DM. I'm going to sit back and be like, all right, tell me what happens, dude. My other player looks back at the monster dripping beneath the waters, and she gives this beautiful monologue, not too long, about, you know, how like it's going to be someone else's problem and this feels wrong. And then she tossed it back to me, and she just looked at me, and I said, be bold, do it. And I had no idea what she's going to do. And she was like, okay. I drop my guns and I jump in the water. I'm like, okay, let's cook. Let's do this. Yeah. And there were no rolls there, right? She swam to it.
Yeah.
She swam to it. And it's just this beautiful picture of a woman underneath storming waters, blue-green, with like lightning in the background as she swims towards this giant kraken. And then she touches it on the forehead. And she didn't know it at the time, but she has this ability to open portals. And she didn't know what she was doing. She was like, I touch his forehead. And I'm like, cool. You have to roll for shit. A portal opens up and it sucks it in. And it's this crazy ending. And it's like, you don't need inspiration for that. You don't need to roll for that. You gave me something that I was not expecting, and I was like, this is sick.
Sorry, no, there's absolutely those moments. I have them as a DM sometimes where I'm just like, a player tells me they want to do something, and I'm like, I'm not risking the dice not letting this moment happen.
Yeah, 100%.
No, that
the dice
happens.
is what you use when you have an outcome that you want to be left up to chance. So if you want a certain thing to happen, or you're afraid that the dice could mess up what's about to be a really great, amazing thing, then don't have them roll dice. I do have to say though that I feel your pain. I had them in a combat once where they were attacked by like Ukatoa cultists, and there were sharks and all sorts of great crazy stuff. And on her dumb sword that I gave her is the ability to change hearts, and it should say humanoid, but it says creature.
Oh, no.
So she's like, "Can I charm his skeleton shark?" And I'm like,
I want his bone shark to work for me now.
"Yeah, I guess you can."
Yeah.
And it worked.
My favorite part of this entire behavior that I do is I actually tell my players, like, don't ask me things. Please don't ask.
Don't
I'm
ask, just
serious.
go for it.
That's literally my style of DMing. Like, just do it. Send it. I'll tell you if you can't. But
yeah, you just tell me what you want to do. It's one of the early things that one of the tips I always give to like beginning players who kind of obsess over like, I don't know if I can jump on the chandelier and then do the attack because I would have to use like a skill. You can only use so many skills, and it's like, hey, don't worry about all of that. You tell me what you want to do, and we'll figure out how you can do it.
Yeah, I have a saying where it's like, exactly. I have a saying where like, if you ask me if you can roll for something, I'll always say yes. If you ask me if you can do something, I might just tell you, yeah, you do it.
You might not have to roll for it.
Yeah. If you ask to roll, though, I will make you roll for sure.
It's that same idea of ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
Yeah. Send it.
Kali, another one of the tools that you had mentioned earlier was an X card. This is the XO, and I think there's also like an N card, but I actually off the top of my head don't know what that one is. But these are a little harder to do when you're playing online, but the concept is still the same, right? The X card is something that you would play when like a line has been crossed, or maybe even emotions are just so high that like you need a break away from it.
Yeah, we hard cut. The scene's done.
Especially if you're like in on this scene as well. If it's a scene that you're maybe not in, right, and maybe something's hitting you harder than what you expected it to, right? Maybe a character's going through like the loss of a parent, and long time ago you lost one. For some reason in this moment it's hitting hard. You can always just stand up and walk away. No one is gonna stop anything. We'll deal with it later if that's what it comes down to. The O card is kind of like a warning, like, hey, this is kind of heavy. Can we, get it moving?
Red light, yellow light.
For pretty much red light, yellow light. And then could one of you fill me in on the N card specifically?
N card, at least at my table, is like a query. It's me as N card. Is everyone okay? Am I good?
Okay, so this is just maybe someone, including the players, right, has kind of noticed like things are getting a bit hard right now. So it's just like a hey, checking in type.
Are we good?
Deal.
Okay, we're okay.
Okay.
Are you all just in character right now, or is that look of horror on your face like actual? And I need to lay off.
Right. Yeah. Someone's crying. Are you still having fun? Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And even online. This is, again, an expectation you set in session 0, or even before, preferably, that I never not play with cameras on. This is a social game. I will die on this hill. This is a social game. You need to see each other's faces. We need to see how other people are reacting to whatever it is going on. You need that visual. And so doing X cards is not bad at all, because you can just do a classic anime, like put your hands up in a big ass X.
With the Tabletop Tailspinners Network, I know that Emma uses all of those as well, and we're obviously all online. And she always says, "I'm watching chat, I'm monitoring DMs, like whispers." Yep. So like type it in the chat if you need to. And to me, those are the 3 like big ones that no matter what table I go to, like if you don't give me a lines and veils to fill out at the beginning, talk about the X and O cards, and then do stars, wishes, and if you like the idea of wards as well. Wards is kind of like mostly just my thing to know what I can maybe remove if people don't all like it. Like I know in my games, the classic dungeon crawl of the rogue stealthing forward and figuring where everything else is while everybody else just waits in the background. Most of my table doesn't like that. So we usually do more like narrative focused stuff instead of the traditional dungeon crawl. And
there's also some really amazing tools out there for things like lines and veils. I have a new document that actually Emma gave to me that breaks it down into 5 colors. It's green, teal, yellow, orange, red. And green's, enthusiastic consent, love it, do it. teal is I'm generally okay, but
It
please
felt
ask first.
weird putting green down for like tentacles. Like tentacles was a specific one, and so for me to be like
Enthusiastic consent. No, I get it.
I know you get it. I get that from you. I
Listen,
don't mind if you use tentacles. I wouldn't say I'm enthusiastic about
Robbie,
them.
you need to embrace
Not yet,
this,
you're not,
okay?
Robbie.
Yeah,
Not yet, you're not.
We're getting there. But yellow is, I'm mildly uncomfortable with this. Don't go into deity. It's kind of like a veil. Orange, fine for other people. I don't want it for me. And then red, hard line. And then the spreadsheet actually like compiles all your players' answers and gives you the master document, which is just the highest one that is in the group of each of them.
Oh, that's so great because I always had to do that.
Like before.
Yeah, I always had to do that like by hand. Was create the second document with just like the highest values of each of them.
Yep, this does it automatically.
You can also do something similar with lines and veils documents for things like relationships too. Like, hey, are you interested in relationship?
Romance, YN,
player romance. Yeah, player romance, NPC romance. Yep.
Yep. Which, by the way, romances is another thing you should be covering in your session zeros.
Yeah.
Were there any other like major safety tools that either of you are big fans of that you would want to talk on?
Yeah, this is something that's probably not considered a safety tool, but I did want to talk about it because I think
it makes you feel safe. It is a safety tool.
It might be more important than session zero, frankly.
Okay.
And it is a bit of backstory. I used to play D&D with my IRL friends, like my real life friends here in New York. And then after a while, I told them, "Hey, I love you guys. I never want to play D&D with you ever again. We can still play Magic the Gathering. I love it, boys.
Oh, we're fine, D&D.
But we can't play D&D. I only play with strangers. And in my actual play, Fables of Frost and Fur, my cast, I didn't know them before we started this show, and I auditioned people as a DM and saying like, "Hey, this is the world. This is what we're making. This is my vision for it. Sign up if you want to audition." Right, and the audition is a 30-minute one-on-one role-playing scenario where I give them the opening scene to Inglourious Basterds set in the fantasy world. And I say, let's tell a story together and let me see how we tell stories together. And a lot of times I came out of that and I messaged them. I was like, "Hey, really nice meeting you, man. You're awesome. I don't think we match.
I don't know that we're going to fit at this table."
Look, you're really awesome, but you're not. Goodbye, block.
No, and there have been some where I'm just like, "Oh my God," but there have been some where I'm just like, this person's cool, and at any other table they'd be a blessing. For my table, it's not what I'm looking for. And
well, especially because in AP type situations, there are certain things you have to be a lot more careful of than some people might be able to get away with more at home tables.
Sure. So but here's my thing about home games is that I didn't like home games. Right. I stopped playing with my friends, and this typical banter, this typical like non-immersive thing that most home games are, which is completely fine, and everyone should enjoy their hobby. I don't enjoy that. I'm a former actor. I'm a performer naturally.
Your friends probably looked at it more as just a game than telling a story together.
Correct.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say, what happens when you become friends with the people that you play with now? Like at a certain point, do we have to worry about like, oh no, if we become too good of friends, he's gonna cut us out. He's gonna replace us.
Yeah, it's more of like this tool that I'm talking about is you should vet your players. As a DM, please do. Like you have this responsibility as a DM to also be the director. Even if you're not making an actual play, even if you're not making a narrative play, even if you're not recording, it doesn't matter. You are the director at this table. You have the final say in things, and that is a responsibility you have to take very seriously, which means that the people you put in your table, especially online, which a lot of people nowadays play, right, with people all across the world, if you're playing with strangers, you should, as a DM, be beholden to keeping them safe by just guarding the door first.
Yes.
And this 30-minute audition, and it could be anything, man. It's just a single scene of just like, "Yo, are you a creep?" Right? And this is before session zero. This is before session zero of just like, do I want you at my table? Right? And I think that's a powerful tool that everyone can use. Obviously, don't audition with them with like a 3-hour one shot. Don't do that. That's a terrible idea. But just a quick 30 minutes.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about that is, you as the DM, you are responsible first and foremost for your players feeling safe and having a good time.
Absolutely.
I'm a professional DM, which means that to an extent I am beholden to, I need people to pay me for the slots at my table, which is, it can lead you to have a degree of pressure to be like, I need, like, the people I get at my table, I don't want to lose them, but I have had to remove people from my tables because more important than me collecting my paycheck even is that everyone has a good time.
That is correct. That's absolutely correct. Like, when I get paid for games, like, I tell people straight up, like, listen, I am more than happy to DM for you. Yep. There will be a process before we even begin. During this process, I may say, I have a concern about one of you, or just straight up say, you are not welcome at this table. I'll happily refund you your money. Yeah. Because as a professional DM, it's not a living. Like, we go by reputation, right? And it's like, I do not want anyone to ever walk out of my table saying like,
well, I'm never doing that again.
I don't really ever want to do that because of what happened at that table. That's my worst nightmare.
The whole reason that I started DMing professionally is when I hear stories of people saying, and so then I never wanted to play again. Like, like anything else, it's all about who you play with. And oh gosh, to hear stories where people have, potentially missed out on these amazing experiences because of terrible people, it breaks my heart.
I have a player go ahead.
And as a DM, again, to re-emphasize, like, yeah, it's awkward to talk to people being like, get the fuck out of my table. Yes, I understand not everyone has that personality, but as a DM, I'm sorry, it's a skill you have to acquire, is a skill you have to grow, because your players deserve better. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's about your players. They deserve better, and it's not their job. It's yours. If you don't like that job, don't be a DM.
Here's a tip as well, though. Like, if you really need to tell someone to like go away, like let's say you've done the whole, hey, sorry, it's not going to work out, we're going to look for somebody else, and they're pestering you, and you've tried the whole like blocking type stuff. Everyone has a friend who's really good at telling people off, right? Yeah. If you need to go to them and be like, hey, I need you to come, take my phone, DM this person. I need you to get them to leave me alone.
Type this message. Please type a message for me that will make this person not talk to me again.
Everyone has at least one of those friends that can help them out there.
But I have a player at my table who she is an amazing role player. She's so talented. She's really good at thinking about character concepts. And she only joined playing because her girlfriend was also playing at one of my tables, and she had terrible experiences with D&D in the past, didn't want to ever play it again. But then they saw what her girlfriend was going through and how much they were loving and how much they were enjoying it. They were kind of like, okay, well, I kind of want to try it again. And now they love it, and they play in multiple of my games, and they love like designing their characters. And I'm like, see, and this is like, it sucks that you had to miss out on doing this sooner because you had a bad experience at a table.
Right. And you hear so many stories like that. And it breaks my heart for sure, because like, you never know what you're really looking for until you find it. Right. Yep. Personal story time, I quit D&D for a year because of this exact thing. It was just like, I wasn't finding good tables. Like, I was getting fed up. I was burnt out because I put in all this work, and it's like the tables did not go the way I wanted them to.
Were you DMing at this time too?
Yeah, I never play. I never play as a player ever.
Ever?
I mean, I have like done a one shot, and I was like, this sucks. So no.
Forever DM by choice.
I'm gonna point it out again. God Emperor of Fracty. Sorry, continue. I quit because I did not like I thought to myself, maybe I just don't like D&D, and I was okay with that. Like, maybe I just don't like this hobby. And that sucks because I thought there were parts of it that like I really enjoyed. And it turns out that it took getting cast as a DM for this actual play, finding the right
casting a team of actors who are on board with the same mission. And we develop with all of this practice before we even started session 1, dudes. Yeah. Like, we had practice sessions where we were like, how do we 4 people tell a story together? And those are non-canonical. We had some semblance of characters, but like non-canonical. And we were just like, we were finding it. And when we found it, I was just like, I love D&D. Are you kidding me?
There's the high.
I just did not like playing the way that I had been playing for the past 5, 6, 7 years. And that's a travesty. And I want everyone who's listening right now to know that, hey, if you're not super obsessed, happy with your table, it's okay to try to find another table and explore, what do you really want? Right.
And my advice for someone who's afraid to leave that table that you're not having fun at because what if I can't find another one? Use the time that you would be playing that game every week to look for one. I
Yeah.
promise you they are out there. Go back and listen to episode 1. We talk with Aaron and list all sorts of cool places that you can go to look for those types of games and to find those types of people. And if it really comes down to it, look, the whole Thanos mentality, do
I'll
it
do
yourself.
myself.
Yep.
Do it yourself.
Mhm.
Exactly. You never know when you might love DMing and be like, oh my God, I was a player? Gross. Right? And
All
it's,
right.
Yep.
So we're gonna hit near the end of the show here. So something that we started doing a while ago now, and we love it now because I know what Kali's gonna say. I know how she's gonna respond to these, but the guest is always up in the air. So we have a few "Am I
trying
the
to say I'm
asshole?" stories.
predictable?
I bet that I could tell you what you're going to say to each of these before you say it.
Wow.
Right? So we have some "Am I the asshole?" stories here.
Do you have a whiteboard? Do you have a whiteboard? Right. Let's test this right now.
We could test this. One of these days we'll do it. So we have some "Am I the asshole?" stories, and these are written from the perspective of the player, the perspective of the characters themselves, not like an issue that's happened at the table, but something that happened within the narrative of the game. So of course we're going to throw it to you first, Kenny, before we give our answers on these. But we're going to start with Huntress with daddy issues.
Love it.
Am I the asshole for trying to talk my father out of killing me, my family, and my friends rather than just trying to kill him? So I grew up without knowing my father. When I was old enough, I set out into the world. And 15 years after I left, I returned to where I grew up to help my mother deal with devils invading nearby towns and displacing inhabitants, like you do. When we discovered my father was leading the invasions, I was horrified and knew we had to stop him. My husband, adopted sister, and a couple of friends joined me in confronting him. I tried to talk to him, telling him who I was, but he was too far gone and kept attacking my loved ones, trying to kill us. But still, I couldn't bring myself to do the same. Despite having never known him and the fact that he was serving a devil, I wanted to try and capture him alive. The fight ended when one of my companions shot him with an arrow and his devil patron whisked away his dead body. Later on, my husband was upset that I kept trying to talk to him instead of killing him when he kept attacking us, and we got into an argument about it, and now I'm not sure if I should have acted differently. Am I the asshole?
The husband here being like in character husband.
Yes? Correct.
Yes.
Cool. Got it. I was like, oh, this is going to get real weird if that's like your actual husband. Are they the asshole? Absolutely not. So bit of no hesitation. Bit of a disclaimer here. I am fully a narrative DM. I am a slave to the greater narrative. I'm a slave to the story. Everything that I expect my players to do serves the greater narrative of the story that we are telling. I think that not being able to pull the trigger, loose the arrow,
swing the sword, whatever it is,
on a family member, despite you having never known them, actually because you've never known them, is so much more interesting. It is so much more interesting.
This couple's characters, like going to like a therapy session, right? Where like Kenny's the therapist, right?
Nice.
And the husband being like, "Are you kidding?" And then Kenny's just like, "Look, by not attacking and trying to reconcile, it's just much more interesting. How quickly would that fight have been over if she would have just killed him? No, I'm siding with her."
Now tell me how you feel about your mother, though.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and say not the asshole from the perspective of I don't know that I can call you an asshole for not committing murder. Like, I get that they were attacking you and that they were that they're clearly evil. But if you don't want to kill someone,
what about framing it as like castle law self-defense shenanigans here?
It is like, you can self-defend yourself without killing somebody.
Okay, right? Trolley problem. What if two of your companions are on one side and there's a switch and then your father on the other side?
Kill yourself. I don't know. That's
that wasn't an option, Kali.
I stand in front of the tracks.
I'm gonna agree with the both of you. I don't think that the motives make them an asshole. And obviously it lacks like a little bit of super fine, nuanced context. were they completely refusing to fight at all? Because you could be trying to convince them to stop as you're attempting to subdue them, right? So I get like where the husband and the friends are coming from, but I don't think that it makes you an asshole.
Definitely not.
Yeah,
I also
I
think
agree.
that listen, there's a world in which, depending on what has happened before in the campaign, it is entirely more interesting to try to kill your father, successfully do it, and then never be the same again.
And it clearly affected you in a way that every time I figure out it's fine. He was evil. He was trying to kill us. You never knew him, and yet it still changed you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Of just like your companion's going, hey, you're bleeding. You can let go of the arrowhead. You're bleeding,
Yep.
right? Like, there's a world in which like that is also an interesting story. But I think a more interesting one is you don't try to kill him. Your party members are mad at you, and you have to reconcile with them, and that is such a juicy conversation.
And you know what I would do if I was the DM now, right? Because the devil patron whisked his body
Oh, he's gonna be
away.
back.
Is you bring him back, but now there's been a seed of doubt planted somewhere within his head. So maybe the next time you don't try to talk him out of it, but there's something in him that wants you to.
Oh,
And then you end up maybe you redeem him, but maybe you don't and realize that the possibility was there, and then it's even worse.
that
Yep.
reminds me,
100%.
Robbie, when we played Call Into the Deep and we had Ember, right?
I was just thinking
One
about
of
this. I
her-
wasn't sure if I wanted to bring it up.
One of her
Yeah.
big struggles is that so she was brought up an assassin, and in some of the worst ways imaginable. She was definitely like traumatized as a child and tortured as a child, and later on she's become the assassin, but she feels so guilty for the things that she does. And one of the things she said all the way to the end of the campaign was, I even in those horrible circumstances, I still made the choice to kill somebody. And once you have made that choice, you never get to go back to being someone who hasn't made that choice. And that's what I learned.
Oh, see, what I was thinking about was this was a story where you weren't interested in exploring forgiveness for what
For
your
my
family
father, yeah,
had
no,
done to
definitely
you.
not, no.
And found out that there was some circumstances around the brother, was able to save him because he didn't technically do it. But then the older sister, also, there was no forgiveness there,
No.
but there was enough of a story where it looked like maybe she could learn something like on a long enough timeline. But before they were able to find that out or get there, the father killed her as well.
Yeah.
That was a great moment. Anyway, next up, morally conflicted adventurer.
That's just every game.
Isn't that everyone?
That's
all of
every
us.
adventure
Yep.
and every game.
That's all of us. Am I the asshole for not taking a deal with a literal devil that might have prevented my city from being invaded by devils? After my 30 or she's 37 female father was killed, his devil patron. But this isn't you, is it, Huntress with daddy issues? After my father was killed,
or is it Will from Baldur's Gate?
his devil patron offered me a job in exchange for my father's soul. This could absolutely just be the same one.
Yeah.
The contract didn't specify what the job for him would entail, and in the end, I turned it down. A few weeks later, that same devil led an invasion of my home city. He killed the king, used a magical barrier to seal off the city from the rest of the world, opened a gate from the hells, released the devils on us, fought them off, ended the invasion, but obviously there was a lot of lives lost and a lot of destruction. When we'd recovered some, I began to wonder if maybe I should have taken the deal after all, and maybe I could have prevented the invasion somehow if I had. Am I the asshole?
Kenny, I'm going to jump in for you. You're absolutely the asshole. You were offered a juicy plot hook when that devil offered you a deal, and you didn't take it.
It's that was the first thing. I was just like, if I was at DM, I'd probably be like, yeah, this is like a slam dunk. Like, take the deal.
Take
I
the
got
deal.
some spicy things for you.
I got some great stuff.
And
What
then
do you
it's
mean,
just
no?
like, no. Okay. Well, your city's gone. It's interesting. I could kind of go either way on this because, again, slave to the narrative. I think, though, I probably lean more towards no. You're not the asshole for not taking this deal. You're not the asshole for letting this city and a bunch of people get killed, because I love it when stakes are upped. Because, it's classic, like, first arc of an anime, it's just like, oh, you got to beat your rival. And then, like, last arc is like, you have to save the known universe.
You
Like,
got to fight God. All right.
right. And it's like that escalation it gives you so much juicy, like, yeah, you miss a plot hook, sure, but in return you get these opportunities to say, how does someone deal with the guilt of this? How does the world change? And how does the world react to you now? I think that is such an interesting thing to have happened, especially if you didn't know it was coming, because you're just like, no, I'm not going to deal with the devil. Oh my God, why? Why would I do that?
Burn the city down when I didn't.
Yeah, it's such a interesting, like, how does this character move forward from this? How do they crunch under this pressure of everyone spitting on them because they all know
you could have prevented
your
this.
fault.
But at the same time,
even though had you taken the deal, they'd be like, "Oh my God, you could deal with the devil."
Yeah,
What's
what the hell's the
wrong
matter with you? No, but the character growth moment here is them learning this idea of like, hey, me being blamed or blaming myself for this is absolving that devil of what they did.
Mhm.
This is their choice. And that's what should be the interesting character growth moment, is when they learn to forgive themselves for this, because it really wasn't their fault.
Yeah, I agree, not the asshole, because by not taking the deal, the devil doesn't have control of you, and obviously he has his own machinations. Had you taken the deal, for all you know, the job sends you away when the invasion happens. He has more control over you. Might you be able to figure something out or get some new information from him? Yeah, maybe, but I think that you are just as much at mercy of giving up some interesting piece of information to him as he would be to you. So I still think that in character, you made the smarter choice. And look, quantum devil in the city, it was going to happen either way.
Right. If you did take the deal, there is literally no way that you would ever know that this piece of shit was not just going to do it anyways, and also blame you and also have your soul. So
yeah. Also, Robbie, I think we need to make like the NPC survival guide, where it's like, hey, the son of the smith down the street just got offered a deal by the devil. You get the hell out of that city. Some shit's about to go down in that city. You got to go.
You know what?
Pack your bags, pack your kids.
You know what? If Kenny had offered this, I would say yes. But you are just as bad. Do I need to bring up the kid in Odessalo whose puppy was stuck in a hole?
Wait, but I went with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You need that survival guide. Why would I let you write it?
No, I'm saying this is for NPCs. This is not for PCs.
Okay,
this is the NPC survival guide. If you're just some villager in town and you just found out that someone down the street got offered a deal by the devil, you got to get the hell out of that city right now.
I'm pretty sure
something bad's about to happen.
That for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that brings us to the end of the show today. Kenny, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a wonderful episode. Please take a moment to let everybody know, where they can find you. Shout out any projects that you want to shout out. The floor is yours.
You are no daughter of mine.
Oh, I do not have anywhere to go, please.
I don't care, mongrel. No beast kid will live under my roof.
I'm not a mongrel, Pa. I'm your daughter. I'm scared.
You might have warned me. This girl is going to change the world.
I would die 1,000 times to keep her safe.
And we would kill 1,000 times.
What is my destiny? Because it seems everyone wants to tell me what it is.
You've made me very angry little kiss.
He's going to kill us all and then he's going to try it again.
No, I do not accept that. And neither are you.
I have given you all the delicious things your pathetic world has to offer.
I think the only thing we can do is die.
No, it ends with us.
Roll for initiative.
Oh, okay, wait.
No.
Oh no.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Really appreciate it. My name is Kenny. I'm the DM for Fables of Frost and Fur, a Roll for Impact production. Fables of Frost and Fur is a hyper-immersive narrative play produced like an audio drama. You will very rarely find anything that sounds like we do. Our biggest compliment is when people think we're scripted. You can find us on YouTube and anywhere you find your podcasts under Roll for Impact. Roll for Impact has many shows. The Stranger, Stellaris Obscura. We are known as Fables of Frost and Fur, the most recent season of Roll for Impact.
I think, is The Stranger about like a thief or something like that?
It is not. It's
okay. I thought that I might have auditioned or filled out a form for that or something that sounds very similar to that at one point.
We did cast that at one point, so you might have very well seen it.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. And as for
The Stranger
us,
is when you sit on your hand and
I'm aware. Thank you. If this isn't your first time listening, you know what we're about. But if it is your first time here, besides podcasts, we also do a ton of homebrew over on our Patreon, which currently includes 865 magic items, 12 subclasses, and maybe by the time that you're hearing this, our 13th one may be out, the College of Culinarian Bard, which is basically cooking or art through cooking that allows you to enchant and turn your snacks and your cooking into cute little flying creatures that go around and give inspiration to people and provide them benefits before they have to eat them.
You get to have snacklings.
Snacklings is what they are officially called. You can find us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Cloaks and Capes TTRPG. And if you haven't already, I'd also like to encourage you to either leave a rating on this podcast if you're listening on Spotify, or if whatever platform you're using lets you review the episode as well, because that does help new people find us. But that's going to be it for myself, Kali, and Kenny. Thank you again, everyone, for watching or listening. Until next time.
Thank you.
The Cloaks and Capes podcast is created by the support of its listeners and generous Patreon donors. Special thanks to our mythmakers and legends, Heartslot, Dolvik, Celtic Crow, Darkflux, Gamergal, Strix River, Tater Thoughts, and Capelli. Views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of its hosts. Editing and production by Aaron Pillen, and music provided by Aidan Hagland. If you want to support the Cloaks and Capes podcast, check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/Cloaks and Capes. And check us out on Threads and Instagram at Cloaks and Capes TTRPG. My wife likes to say, you know what,
Nice
that was an inside thought.
Yes. Inside. Let's keep our inside thoughts inside.